I'm going to be reading from a script because I had to rant today after listening to the Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz debate, so please hear me out, buckle in, and enjoy the ride. But please understand the point before thinking things are irrelevant to the big picture, or just watch the entirety to get the connection. In 1830, the Trail of Tears was the forced displacement of about 60,000 of the five civilized tribes between 1830 and 1850. The additional thousands of Native Americans and their black slaves within that we had ethnically cleansed by the United States government, opening up 25 million acres of land for us today, by forcibly removing them of their homeland for the sole reason of hatred and racial hatred and greed, forcing them on one of the longest walks in history while ignoring their human needs and leaving behind those who couldn't continue, often killing them, becoming one of the first genocides America has taken part in. 30 years later, in 1861, America was extremely different than it is today. I'm not talking from a futuristic perspective, but morally. There were 15 states where slavery was legal and 19 that were free, and some becoming free after fighting back, but this was not on a wide scale like we'd see in the internet era. Instead, it was natural protesting and standing up for what you believe in. States like Kansas fought roughly to earn freedom for others, and while we believed we made a difference, it was only the start, because that's 4 years from when the true change was blueprinted. For the last 100 years since then, there were differing opinions and it was left to the states to decide. However, in 1860, when Abraham Lincoln was elected and made clear he was against slavery, 7 South states rallied together and created the Confederacy. While in time, that became what brought the Civil War to the front line, and after numerous hard battles, defeated the Confederacy. But during this time, how did the people who feel the same way we do today attempt to take a stand? They put their own property, liberty, and morals at stake in exchange for doing what they believed was right. Abolitionists would house people and do what they can to get them from one place to another, safely and quietly. That is where the term Underground Railroad comes from, as it's neither underground nor a railroad, but a connection that forms miles upon miles of states which would act as one to safely get people to places the Union can fight to protect, which we all know today because of the late Harriet Tubman, knowing the pain and suffering she went through while enslaved since birth, decided to fight for her people, repeatedly for 10 years traveling to dangerous territory to save hundreds to thousands of slaves from the South, where people of different colors agreed that what is happening is wrong. And for that I say thank you to everyone who served to protect peace and liberty. And despite the harsh battles fought for liberty, in 1865, when Lincoln passed the Emancipation Proclamation, this was only the beginning blueprint for true change. Because for the last 160 years, America has continued its race wars. If you look it up on Google, you will see that the civil rights movement apparently starts in 1968. But despite Lincoln passing the bill in 1865, the entire 100 years after the passing of the bill, there were civil rights movements all over the world. Just look at people like Mary White Ovington, who in 1890, after graduating college, and after following in the footsteps of her parents who were abolitionists and who supported Abraham Lincoln's side and the Union side and not the South side, she was fighting and campaigning for rights in 1800s, 1890, 30, 25 years after Abraham Lincoln. But Google will say that it starts in the 1950s, 1960s. But back to 1900s, and this is when the world is starting to realize that we're on the wrong side of history and only getting better once realizing how close they are getting to ruin. Only after stories go nationwide, like Rosa Parks, who was not allowed to vote, yet in the United States history, the 19th Amendment was ratified in 1920, granting women the right to vote, or was told to go to the back of the bus and stood her ground, refusing, or the numerous racially motivated sexual violence acts that she learned about and campaigned for, or the amazingly articulate and respected figure Malcolm X for being able to be in a factual and real manner win over the American population and help others understand real long-standing struggle. Or the late great MLK wishing to fight back against the system and shaking the world, winning a Nobel Peace Prize for advocating and combating racial inequality through non-violent resistance to end up being considered a threat by our government, becoming a target of COINTELPRO, where all they do is disrupt and neutralize organizations and individuals deemed subversive by the United States government, often using extra legal means, which if you want to know what extra legal means, it's a fancy word that looks formal but just describes the word illegal. All because J. Edgar Hoover had an insanely weird fixation on him and what he stood for. Malcolm X being assassinated in 1965 and MLK being assassinated in 1968. While that's a lot to swallow what we just went over, let's look at something else, and I'm sorry for quickly moving on. I know I brought it up very quickly, but during the 1860s, the ladies were going through a campaign of their own, finding pivotal success farther back in the 1848 Seneca Falls Convention, leading to women fighting for their rights to vote for equality. This Seneca Falls Convention is what was a pivotal moment for women later to protest for their rights. Going on 71 years until finally in 1919, the 19th Amendment was ratified. The women's suffrage movement was not without its challenges and internal issues, including problems of race, class, and bad faith actors. Black women in particular faced additional barriers and were often marginalized within the movement. Despite these challenges they faced, the movement's persistence and dedication of its liberty ultimately led to a significant milestone in the fight for gender equality in the United States, which still exists today but is a lot better with great change forward made. Next topic. Hawaii in 1893, Cuba in 1933, Iran in 1953, Guatemala in 1954, Dominican Republic in 1961, Chile in 1973, South Vietnam in 1963, and Venezuela in 2002. Every one of those places, America placed CIA agents or envoys to orchestrate and lead coups in order to create a regime change. Oh, that's a fancy word this week. Oh, along with the 64 other countries we did that to during the Cold War. We also have Iraq in 1990s, Haiti in 1991, Iraq again in 1992 to 1996, Haiti again in 1994, the Congo in 1996, Yugoslavia in 2000, Afghanistan in 2001, Venezuela again in 2019, Iraq War starting in 2003 and lasting until 2021, Haiti again in 2004, Kyrgyzstan in 2005, Palestine in 2006, Syria in 2005, 2011, Libya, Syria 2012, Bolivia 2019. While this reads like a 90-year-old playing Sudoku, every single one of those has something in common. We went there either because we felt threatened by their ideals, wanted to force them to be dependent on America, didn't like certain TV channels and people, or funded coups and regimes, many of these places being entirely changed for the rest of time. Oh, we also have the 1964 Brazil, 1902 Cuba, 1973 Dominican Republic, 1914 we occupied Mexico after regime change, 1989 Panama. Let me stop myself because this video is going to turn to an hour of me listing places we've oppressed for our own benefits. So before I continue, I just want to clarify why I'm bringing up these terrible things. It is not impossible, improbable, or crazy hypothetical to say that we have been on the wrong side of history in the past. It is also not debatable to say if we've continued these acts in the last 50 to 60 years, and it's not that much of a stretch to ask yourself if we're walking into that one right now in a couple of ways. Now let's talk about one of the loudest contradictions today, America's unconditional alliance with Israel. Billions in military aid every year, vetoes at the UN, blocking calls for ceasefires, full-throated support no matter what. All while entire neighborhoods in Gaza, I know this is not Iran at the moment, are flattened and civilians are left with no food, no water, no future, and yet we act like we're the moral ones, like we're helping defend democracy. The Palestinian people deserve better, and if we want America not to be looked at the same way we do to the British when we fought for independence, we shouldn't be taking studies on colonialism and oppression and thinking up how that could benefit us. On the other hand, we treat Iran like it's the final boss in a video game we've been saving for 50 years, but I guess I should say 30 years according to Bibi. Ever since we overthrew their democratic leader in 1953 and installed a brutal monarch to protect Western oil interests, we've kept them in the crosshairs. Sanctions, sabotage, political isolation, and the justification? They're dangerous. They're close to nuclear warheads. And I guess with the media saying that Iran hasn't complied with regulations on their uranium enrichment or hasn't allowed their places to be investigated, I'm sure the same people regurgitating these talking points have went through the same data reports the International Atomic Energy Agency has been spewing out, all relating to investigations and on-site evaluations, get this, since 2003. Oh, well, if they in fact did, they'd realize a lot more that they're actually talking about. But let's talk about the hypocrisy, because there are 4 big countries over there that have not signed the NPT allowing for evaluations of their nuclear power. In fact, Israel's one of them. But I guess that's fine, because who wants people coming to evaluate the one thing you have to protect your country? It's not like America gets worried anytime a Chinese spy flies in or leaves to bring information. Oh, we do. And if it's such a scary thing showing weakness, making our life more in danger, why would Iran sign than NPT and allow these for the last 22 years. In fact, haven't our own lovely Republicans said that America, by not showing strength, can be susceptible to being attacked? And that's why they love the Ronald Reagan quote that if you want peace, lead with strength. Well, a lot of them are actually misusing that quote, considering it is peace is not absence of conflict. It is the ability to handle conflict by peaceful means. But if we do take it the way the Republicans twist it, couldn't we say the same for Iran? We all want peace. We all want to live. If you ask me, this shit is ridiculous what we're actually doing. But if you look at both cases, Israel and Iran, the pattern's hard to ignore. One is treated like a permanent victim even when it's the aggressor, and the other is treated like a villain even when it's reacting to decades of provocation. But what do our leaders care about? Well, they care about who aligns with us, who serves our interest, who lets us put bases nearby, who buys our weapons. It's not about freedom. It's about control. It's about allegiance. After 9/11, we launched a war that was never really about terror. It was about reshaping the Middle East. Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, Yemen, and now Iran is the boogeyman. Israeli is the hammer, and we're the hand that's holding it. We're not just funding bombs, we're funding backlash. Every bomb strike, every blockade, every time we look away while civilians are killed, we're sowing hatred. We're radicalizing generations. We're making enemies out of people who once just wanted to live. So let's recap for a second. We've got this ride or die loyalty to Israel, even as the world watches bombs fall on schools and hospitals. And we've got this half-century long obsession with Iran, a country we helped destroy and then blamed for the pieces. And if that sounds familiar, it should. Because that same mindset, they're the problem, we're the solution, they should be grateful we even showed up, is the exact same energy we're using right now at our own border. But let's talk about immigration now. We destabilize countries through coups, sanctions, and proxy wars, then act shocked when families flee violence and poverty looking for survival. They show up at our doorstep. Instead of offering refuge, we build walls. Instead of compassion, we give them cages. Kids separated from their parents, women in terrible situations, and still we have the nerve to say they're invading us. But let me be clear, they're not invading. They're escaping the consequences of policies we've had our hand in for decades. And now in 2025, we're watching both major political parties fight not over how to fix the problems, but over how cruel they could be about it. Some states are passing laws to let police come arrest undocumented immigrants just for existing. There are bounties, checkpoints, mass deportations, like we're reliving the worst parts in history in real time. Sound familiar? We demonize the desperate, we villainize the poor, and we do it all while holding a flag that says freedom. It's the same pattern. And so here we are, not in 1830, not in 1965, not even 2003, but right now in the present day, and yet the air still smells the same. It's filled with fear, division, propaganda, and silence. Ask yourself, when our government sends billions in aid overseas while people here are on the streets and people in Flint still don't have clean water, and we are still using lead pipes, not just in Flint. Lead in water is not just a Flint issue. What side of history is that? When states across the country try banning books that dare talk about race, gender, or America's uncomfortable past, are we protecting children, or are we protecting ourselves from the truth? When people peacefully protest police brutality and are labeled domestic threats, or when journalists are tear-gassed on live TV, are we a democracy, or are we something else entirely? Because let's be real, modern surveillance, mass incarceration, voter suppression, attacks on LGBTQ rights, the treatment of immigrants at the border, these are not isolated incidents. They are echoes of the past system that were never fully dismantled, just given a makeover. And here's the hardest part, the part most people don't want to talk about. Just because we're not the ones pulling the trigger, passing the bill, flying the drone, riding in a tank, doesn't mean we're not involved. Silence is participation. Apathy is allegiance. So yes, maybe we're walking into another moment where our grandchildren will look back and ask, how could they let that happen? Why didn't more people speak out? Why did they wait? We like to think we'd be the ones hiding the runaway slaves, marching with King, standing up at the Seneca Falls, or telling our We like to think we'd be the ones hiding runaway slaves, marching with King, standing up at Seneca Falls, or telling our politicians, no, we do not want war, while people are without healthcare and homes. But are we doing that? Because history is being written right now, and I consider silence a sin. Thank you.